Protect this man at all costs. I will repeat that. We need to protect this man at all costs. Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso is showing us how a true and good leader should be. This is a man to look up to, and our leaders need to take a notebook, right? Take their pen, their their imported pen, right? And write down each and everything that this man, this young man that's probably half their age, is doing. I need you to watch this video, fam. I found it on Instagram. Their page is called West Indie Made.
The young captain was having a conversation with the pupils. And here is what he's saying. I was telling you a while ago, in school they were telling us that we couldn't do it here. They lied to us. We grow wheat here and it works well, and we will develop it. Some people have started this year. I was able to see people who did it as part of the presidential initiative. And I was told that in the past, some were able to do it, and they produced it well. Currently, we are sowing wheat in some farmlands as part due the presidential initiative. What you eat must be produced here. So, this is why I say that we will teach you many things, and we will review the curricula they teach you. For those who drink coffee, they told us that your coffee, chocolate, it is only in the countries with abundant rainfalls, that here is only savanna desert. It does not rain, we cannot farm. Again, they lied to us. It's not true. Coffee grows well here. Cocoa grows well too. There are people here who have the farms here. Even in Ouagadougou here, there are people who have cocoa trees in their yards. This means that chocolate that children envy those from well-to-do families can be manufactured here in Burkina, and all the children can eat chocolate in Burkina. We found out it is possible. As for milk, why do we have to import it? We can do it. I just want to tell you that there are many things that they never told us the truth about. You guys are lucky. We are now teaching you, and we promise you that we will do all we can so that you can eat your fill. As we say, you will eat well in the morning before you go to school. You will go to school for free. You will eat lunch. You will have fun. And in the afternoon when you return home, you will have fun in the neighborhood. Then in the evening, you will learn and review your homework and sleep. This is the dream we have. As long as the children in Burkina are not in these conditions, our fight will not stop, okay? Claps. So we know these are your aspirations and it is right and legal. Any parent is fighting for this. Even those who do not have children fight in the hope of having children and to take care of them so that they can live in better conditions and be better than them. This is the fight of everyone. This is the fight of every generation. We are lucky God gave us everything. Do you know that everywhere in Burkina we can farm? Everywhere. In the Sahel where they tell you it is the desert, it is only sand. We can farm. As for us, we have been lied to so much. It is the brainwashing of the colonizer. He did that so that we may not think. But we finally found out that everything was a lie. Damn lie. Emphasis is mine. If God left many lakes in that desert, he knows why. We can farm everything in Burkina. We can do everything. The land is fertile. And there are so many natural things in Burkina that we never planted. But they were here, isn't it? Have you ever learned how to plant a shea tree in Burkina? You were born and found them already here, right? It is there in the wild, in nature. You know it is a gift from God. There are many things in the shea fruit. You have the shea butter, that is oil. Do you know that there is chocolate in it? There are 7 derivatives in the shea fruit. You also have the Parkia biglobosa, also known as the African locust bean, which is a natural fruit. We have many things. It is not only the minerals in the soil. Even with the soil, we were told that it's ferritic soil, that it is not fertile. Everything is a lie. You see that today there is so much gold in Burkina, but it is just poorly managed. Our mission is to well manage these resources and to take good care of you so that you can be in your basic rights, to lead a good life, to go to school, and that we may protect you, and also that you may fulfill your duties, because your duties are very important, aren't they? You must fulfill your duties. Don't stop only at your rights. When people tell you have rights, add and duties. You have duties towards your parents, seniors, the homeland. You have duties. Someone mentioned traffic lights and all that. You may see a grown person who doesn't respect the traffic lights. But there are schools where they teach you, and we wish it be in all the schools. All right, folks. Our educational system inherited from colonialism is one of the worst legacies we still have in Francophone countries. There are subjects and curricula that are obsolete since the 1960s. I told a friend that France even controlled our educational system to the extent some programs such as mining are never taught in schools and universities. Too bad, but things are changing.
So as you saw, this young president is talking to the youth, the most important segment of our population. Of course, everybody matters, right? You and I matter at whatever age we're at. The older generation.
White man wanted. So the white man bid the highest, and his assistant offered him me when he wanted a monkey. Did you think the assistant was white? He was black. Africa is not for sale. Yeah. So my piece is it's called Afrikana, and it's a reminder to who we are as Africans. As we keep on saying we're not for sale, let us remember our identity, along the way. The highest bidder wanted to buy a monkey, and so his assistant gave him me. And this is what I had to say. I'm African, but I'm not a monkey, a gorilla, or a chimpanzee. Yes, we're custodians of the best wildlife. We house the most unique creatures to ever exist in this life, like the African elephant, the lion whose tribe is Judah, the cheetah and the zebra. Have you looked at an okapi or at the beauty of a mantled gureza? We do not bite. We are depictions of congeniality. You should go back to learn your A's and B's and not those stories that they tell you about us, because we are all about family trees. Roots are strong as a mukula, and we only get stronger and better. Tulea tule kola. We're all about cultural diversity. We believe in unity. The spirit is Ubuntu. Fweba ishibo tuntu. We hail from the land of the sun. We are natural bred warriors. We are children of the deserts, the savannas, the plateaus, the mountains, and the valleys, the keepers of our grandparents' stories. If Wakanda is something new to you, we have lived our lives with the spirit of a Black Panther. This is the blood of Shaka. This is a soil which birthed greats like Utatama Diva, and we cannot run away from the great musicianship or the unique artistry of legends Lucky Dube, Oliver Mtukudzi, or Paul Ngozi. Africans. So we house the best minerals, from the diamonds, the gold, the platinum, aluminium, the oils, and the gases, from the copper belt to the city of gold. Why do you think they scrambled for Africa? We are a world which exists within a world, and we do not believe in banting. We believe in wanting to eat what we want to eat, and you're not a welcome guest in our house if we don't ask you to eat. We love our shisanyama, our kapenta with saza, or tutenembalala down south, our jollof rice and the goosey soup in the west, our posho in the east, and we go all the way up north to Tesco Shari in Egypt. We are professionals of cultural, colored cuisines, as colorful as our clothes, as we cover ourselves in our dashikis, our kente, ankara, or colorful chitenges, as we do not forget to wrap ourselves in our beautiful head ties, as we carry our pride with us. After all, we are the birthplace of civilization. We're not the forces of a sunken city. You called us a dark continent. We're not a dark continent. We are not made of darkness, and our climax is not on a dark night. We are Batman. And we are not poor. Maybe we just got in bed with you too early, which led to the launch of your global poverty prevention projects, the birth of your philanthropies. You see, leaving us only with AIDS. Who needs chains for the 21st century slave? Because benevolent slavery is a mind game, which makes you believe that emancipation is just an ocean of imagination you can walk in, but never get wet. And I can still hear them bidding, stop bidding. So the white man bid the highest, and his assistant offered him me when he wanted a monkey. Did you think the assistant was white? He was black. Africa is not for sale.
Yep.
But everyone has a different story to tell. Shell, which says it's losing it.
The Tampa market. Staggering rise.
Country in Northeast Africa, precisely on the horn of Africa.
But the local market.
Okay. Good afternoon, folks. Once again, this is Frank. I'm your host. This is the Revolutionary Persuasion Educational Lecture Series aspect of WCC. I just want to say welcome as we about to begin the program. So today, I promise we are not going to take long because we don't really have much to say. It's just about the United Nations. So, and the hypocrisy of the United Nations and those that support the United Nations. So the topic says the United Nations just confirmed the world don't care about Africa and African people. They don't care about Black genocide. The United Nations just confirmed it. They don't care. Now, if the United Nations just confirm it, the question then becomes, do we really care if the United Nations confirm it or if the United Nations did not confirm it, or if it did not come from their mouth, right? Do we really care? So my issue that I have today, again, is with some of the African nations. When I say some of the African nations, I mean some of the African leaders. Because some of our leaders are still slaves. And those are the people that I'm referring to. Because those are the people that are being used to go against the African unity or to go against the African togetherness, or to go against the African conscious minds. Those are the people we are talking about today in this video. So even though the title says the United Nations have confirmed how the world don't care about Africa and African people, meaning it is about those bourgeoisie or those African puppet or those African slave this actually go to. They are the ones who don't really care about the issues affecting African people, because they have seen over the years how when it comes to the West, issue affecting the West, they have seen over the year how the West have come together in unity despite their differences, right? Despite they not being friendly, all right? Despite they not being friendly neighbor. But when it comes to issues affecting them, African leaders have seen how the West have united, have come together, have collaborated to solve their issues, because they know if they do not solve that issue, it's not just about current situation, but it is also going to affect generation that will come after them. And that is why they always put their differences aside to make sure to solve that issue so that it will not affect their generation or generation that will come after them. If these African leaders are seeing the West doing that, why, for God's sake, why these African leaders can't come together, but instead they want to come to their colonial master, they want to come to their oppressor. But the issue here is, if you give consent to oppression, by definition, you yourself, you are also taking part on oppression. If you give consent to oppression, that is, if you agree for the oppressor to come into your land, into your continent, to oppress you, that is, if you support the agenda of oppression, that in itself, you are also an oppressor, because you gave consent for your people to be oppressed. You are also an oppressor. Because you know what? Joe Biden will never ever give consent for Americans to be oppressed. Joe Biden will not give consent for any African leader to oppress America. Joe Biden will not do it, because you know, Joe Biden, if he do it, he himself, he's contributing to the oppression of his people. The Prime Minister of England will never agree for African people to oppress the people of England. They will never agree if African foreign policy is a threat to America, if African foreign policy is a threat to Europe, if African foreign policy is a threat to France. Despite African foreign policy is the policy that is in line of African. Despite if African foreign policy is going to benefit Africa, but at the same time, while it benefits Africa, it is going to be a threat to Washington, D.C. or to America. It's going to be a threat to Europe. It's going to be a threat to England, France, Germany. These people will never agree for African foreign policy to exist in their country. Then the question becomes, why will African leaders sit and watch? Why will African leaders sit and watch and accept American foreign policy in their country? Knowingly, American foreign policy is a threat, not in the interest of African people. Knowingly, if they know that European foreign policy is a threat on the African continent against African people, why will African leaders sit and agree to such oppression? that in itself you are also an oppressor. So, why will African leaders know and clearly understand the agenda of UN? Clearly understand those who support the agenda of UN. Clearly understand those who uphold the policy of UN. Stay set and say Africa is part of UN. When they know even the United Nations herself, those who support the United Nations will never ever carry themselves to the United Nations to say, we are the ones supporting the crime in Africa. We are the ones fueling or supporting, the injustices against human rights in Africa. We are the ones supporting proxy war in Africa. Do you think Joe Biden will come and agree to that? Do you think the Prime Minister of England or Israel, do you think they will bring themselves to the United Nations or to the ICC court? Do you think they will do that? Knowingly, the United Nations herself have committed crime against humanity in DRC Congo. Knowingly, the United Nations herself is an oppressive organization. It's a biased organization. It's a colonial organization exploiting the resources of DRC Congo at the same time supporting insurgency in DRC Congo. Knowingly. Then the question becomes, why will African leaders sit and conduce such organization? Why would they even come to the so-called United Nations Summit when the picture is clear? If you give consent to oppression, by definition, you are also an oppressor. Let's continue here. Okay, folks. So, at the current stage of the war, at this current stage, almost all regions in the war have stand still, have come to understand there is no globalism, have come to understand the aim and agenda of the United Nations, unless Africans, only Africans, leaders and Africans who have not yet come to that point of realization of who the United Nations is. The United Nations is the United States and Europe, period. The United Nations is the United States and Europe. The United Nations is the new form of the organization of the transatlantic slave trade. But as we also may call it, the transatlantic mineral trade, the transatlantic exploitation trade, the transatlantic oppressive or oppression trade, the transatlantic dehumanization trade. That is the United Nations. When the transatlantic slave trade started, it was individuals and organizations, and then backed by their government as well. But this time around, it is the United Nations protected, carried out by the United States and Europe. The same folks who partook in slavery and colonization are the same people behind the United Nations protecting their evil doing against humanity. How can the men or the people to whom, or the people who have committed the worst of crime against humanity, be the people that are leading Human Rights Commission? How can the people who have committed the worst crime in humanity turn out to be the people who are at the top of human rights protection? The world have come to understand, but only Africans not in a position to understand the role of the United States, to understand the role of Europe. But the world have come to understand, and they have taken their side. And the world have come to understand, and they are grouping and saying, we are not part of the UN, and saying this world is not a global village. Only Africans are still behind their slave master and their colonial master. To the extent Africans are happy and rejoicing when their colonial master punish, when their colonial master bought break, when their colonial master call one of their own terrorists, only because their own that are being referred to as terrorists are the one fighting for freedom, fighting against America and Europe. But an ignorant African will sit and think America or Europe are fighting for them, but not knowing America and Europe, they are fighting for their selfish interests. I have not seen African leader to come out, to voice out against the United Nations, to voice out against Europe, to voice out against America. But those in the Middle East, the Arab nation that they call the Arab League or the Arab Spring, have all come together to unite against the devil called the United Nations, against the nightman called the United Nations. But oh my God, African people are still warning and dying and believe in so much an organization that was formed by people who hate Africans, by people who treat Africans, by people who want to kill Africans on the African continent and take the entire Africans. We still have slaves who are giving consent to the enslaver, to the oppressor against their own people. Now, the Turkish president or prime minister, as you call it, called UN, how they call it, UN Security Council, Israel Protection Council. The Turkish prime minister called the United Nations Secretary Council or Security Council, as you may call it, he called it, instead of United Nations Security Council, he called it Israel Protection Council. And why did he call it Israel Security Council? He called it Israel Security Council after the United States, Joe Biden, went on to veto the Gaza ceasefire resolution. After the United States, the people that portray themselves, that carry themselves, human rights advocates, that carry themselves as the police of the world. Folks, you have seen how the support of the United Nations, the support of the U.S. taxpayer money to Israel. The United States, along with Israel and Gaza, how they call it, along with Israel, have killed Palestinians and Gaza and people from Gaza over 17,000 just from October 7 to current. They have killed over 17,000 people, civilian, innocents, women, children. And these are the people that call themselves human rights advocates. These are the people that call themselves, they are the protector of human rights advocate. But when they call for ceasefire, Joe Biden vetoed it. But the Arab Spring are uniting and forming resolution to fight their enemies. To fight their enemies. But we have Africans are praying and fastings for their enemies. While other people are united to fight their enemies, we have Africans who are fasting and praying for their enemies. Did you remember the terms? Slave, do not rebel against your slave master. Oh yes, we still have slave. We still have African slave. Slave, when your slave master slap you, do not complain. Turn your left side or your right side and he slap it. Go to your closet and pray and fast and pray for your slave master to forgive you. After your slave master lynch you, butt break you, rape you in front of your family. The slave Bible says, go home and pray for the rapist. Let's continue here. The United States on Friday vetoed a Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the intense fighting between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Washington does dodge a growing glamour for a halt to fighting that had been led by the United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres and Arab nations. When are we going to hear about African nations coming together? When are we going to hear about African nations rising up against the United Nations, rising up against the US, rising up against Europe? When are we going to hear it? But the last time we checked, it was African nations going against African nations, fighting for the oppressor, fighting for the United Nations to continue to stay in DRC Congo, to continue to loot the people's resources, fighting for Europe to stay in Niger, for Europe, for America to stay in Niger, to loot the people's resources, as people in America live better life, people in Europe live better life, while the citizens of the African continent live in abject poverty. The last time we checked, we saw African leaders willing to go into another African nation to wage war on African people, to wage war, to kill their brothers and sisters, to wage war to destroy another African nation in the interest of Washington, D.C. and Europe, the last time we checked. But currently, as we are checking, the Arab nations are uniting to fight their enemies. But Africans, we don't have enemy. Our enemy is ourselves. Our enemies are always those who want to seek the liberation of Africa. Our enemies are always those who want to seek the United States of Africa. Our enemies are always those who want to seek to fight our oppressor. Those are the people we make our enemies. Oh, how sad Africa is. We always want to be slave. We always love to be slave. And those that take us to be slave, when they treat us as slave, we love it. And that's why America know that African love to be slave. That's why Europe know that African love to be slave. They are never and ever willing to partake in the freedom and liberation of African people, because they say we love to be slaves. We have leaders in Africa. We have Tinubu then, who love to be slaves. We have Nana Akufo-Addo then, who love to be slaves. But they sat down there and go against the people of Mali, the people of Burkina Faso, the people of Niger, who don't want to be slaves. Those people who want to control their resources for their people. Those people who want to control their destiny. Those people who want to see the many Africans live in abject poverty. Those people who want to prepare this generation and for the next generation. Nana Akufo-Addo then said no. They want to listen to their colonial master. Because George Bush went to Ghana and built some kind of road on a Akamel. And that's how they lied to the African people. In 2012, they go build road there in order for them to take their African base in Ghana. Do you think the slave master will do anything for the slave free? The slave master will not do anything for the slave free. You are a slave. Why would the slave master want to do anything for you free? That's how the slave and the slave master operate. And that's what Adam Smith told them in the 1800s. Adam Smith told them, if you want for the slave not to rebel against you, try to do something for the slave. Even though he or she is still a slave, carrying out productivity, carrying out your interests. But if your slave is sick, treat your slave. If your slave is hungry, feed your slave. If your slave needs clothes to wear, feed your slave. Adam Smith told them at this point of time, if you don't do it, the slave will rise up against you. The slave will rebel against you. And you do not want for the slave to rise or rebel against you. You have to be sophisticated now. You have to go to another level of treating the slave. In his mind, he's not a slave because you are warning and dining with the slave on the same table. If possible, break one with them. Drink from the same glass, if possible. That was Adam Smith to the colonial master, to the enslaver. And if you look at it, that's the kind of advice that was given to them, and they are taking it, they are going with it. Gave them some crumbs. Then in our case, the resources of them will become yours. Isn't that true? Who control the resources of Africa? It is controlled by Africans. Let me see one nation in Africa that will say we control our own resources. Oh, we have seen it in Mali. When they decided to control their own resources, what happened? The colonial master got so bitter and angry. Oh, we have seen it in Niger. When they decided to control their own resources and their destiny, what happened? The colonial master got so bitter. The devil got bitter. The enemies got bitter. Oh, we have seen it in Burkina Faso. What happened? The devil, the enemies got so bitter. So where is the nation in Africa that is free? And we sit down, we say we are celebrating so-called independence. And that is what Abraham Traore said. Nobody should tell you you're right. No one should define your right. No one should define your right. Because if somebody define your right, and that means your right have limitation. If someone tell you this is your right, then that means there is something that is not of your right. You have limitation. And that is why he said, we have right, but we have duty. Our duty here is to make sure this nation and its people inherit what belongs to them. To prepare and build for the next generation. That is our duty. Don't come and tell us what is our right. So why would Joe Biden veto a ceasefire that should be here in Gaza or Palestine, when the world has seen the chaos and damages Israel has caused along with the support of the United States? Now the question then becomes, do you think these people, these colonizers, these enslavers, want peace in Africa? Now you understand who support the terrorist activities. Oh yes, we don't have to say it. We have said it here numerous times. We know who supported the Arab, how they call it, spring in Libya. We know who can Gaddafi. We know who destroyed Libya. And they said they wanted to give you democracy. Did they give democracy? Who will hold the United States responsible for each crime? Who? But these are the people we still run to, that they are human rights advocates. When the Arab nations are uniting, Africa is still warning and dining with the oppressor, because Africans gave consent to the oppressor to oppress Africans. That in itself, by definition, you are also an oppressor. The United States stand by Israel with its money and military equipment. Where is the human right? Now you understand the terrorist activities in Africa. Who support these people? Who gave them money? Who gave them arms? Who gave them funds? We are yet to come out to see any brave African leaders to say the terrorist activities in DRC Congo, it is being supported by United States military or United States money and equipments. Despite they know it, but they are slaves. They will not say it. We are yet for them to come out and say Europe funds military and equipment to the terrorists, or to the insurgency, or to the proxy war in DRC Congo and to many parts of Africa. They will not say it. But America was brave. Washington, D.C. was brave to say the coup that take place in Africa, we do it. We train people to take down government that will not be in our interest. America came and said it in Washington, D.C. And African leaders know it, but we are yet to see them to come and say it, because they had the mind of a slave. Let's take that out. Let's see another article here. Let's see another article. Look at this other article. Now, this time around, this is Antonio Guterres, right? Saying this. Look, I don't even know why should Africa still be part of the United Nations. I don't get it. It makes no sense at this point of time for African leaders to still partake in any United Nations summit, because the team is clear. Even Antonio Guterres himself, he gave up. I believe he really want to be called General Secretary or whatever leader of the United Nations, because they have come to a point that is clear. There is no organization called United Nations. There is an organization called Europe and US, period. EU, US, EU, US. It is not UN. It was the same United Nations that told United States to not go to Afghanistan. There is no mass weapon of mass destruction. There is no nuclear weapon. Did the United States listen to the United Nations? But the United States went there and destroyed Iraq today and killed the leader. And at the end, they confessed and they said there was no weapons of mass destruction. Did the United States did the UN hold the United States responsible and say, we told you not to go there and you went there? And in fact, United States and Europe went there and killed Osama bin Laden. Sorry, not Osama bin Laden, but what is president? Saddam Hussein. They went and killed Saddam Hussein, destroyed the plane, looted the people oil. But did the United Nations come out to say, we're going to hold the United States and Europe or London responsible because we told you there was no weapons of mass destruction? Do not go there, even though the United States herself came out to say there was no weapons of mass destruction, there was no nuclear weapon. Who hold them responsible? Did the United Nations hold them responsible? That means there is no United Nations. There is EU, US, period. War in Gaza. Listen to this. War in Gaza made aggregate threats to international peace. United Nations chief. Now, let me explain this clearly for African leaders to understand. Maybe they did not understand because English is not our language, right? But we learn it to apply it. War in Gaza may aggregate threats into international peace. As we all know, the United Nations have never carried out any peace resolution in any African nation to say the United Nations, there was a war, there was terrorist activities, and the United Nations went in and made sure there was peace. And today, that nation in Africa is peaceful and have its own form of government without any interference. And yet, to see anybody that would say this nation in Africa, name me a nation in Africa with the presence of the United Nations, that the United Nations have made sure peace reign in our country, and they had their own leader before the United Nations went or left. Let me see that country. Now, what the UN General Secretary is saying here is the current war in Gaza, by all means, there should be no war. By all means, what they are trying to say, the United Nations actually is capable of making peace. But America is at the forefront of making sure there is no peace. The first article we read, what it says, Joe Biden veto, the United States veto ceasefire in Gaza. Listen, folks. Is the United Nations more than how do you call it? Is the United States more than the UN? Listen to this, folks. Does the United States have power over the United Nations? I put S. The United States, no S. No S, one nation, have power over the United Nations with S. That the United States, no S, will veto the United Nations S not to carry ceasefire in Gaza, and the United Nations S become powerless, the United Nations with S have no power to carry peace. Then why the United Nations with S was funded? If the United States have that power, if the United States have that infinity power over the UN, then why should an organization called the UN still exist? Why should African people, why should African leaders still be part of that UN? Aren't you seeing it from the first article that we read? That the Arab nation have come to realize that there is no United Nation, there is Europe and US. And they have realized it, and now they are coming, the Arab nation are coming, forming, uniting to fight their own interests. Africa. Africa stays setting up planning for the next United Nations summit. Oh man, so sad. As we speak, Africans are setting, thinking what to say for the next United Nations summit, while the Arab nations are currently thinking not to come to the next United Nations summit. They are currently thinking how they can unite to fight their enemies. But no, Africans are planning what to say for the next United Nations summit. Maybe some of them are even already started by early, or some of them already started writing their letter, writing their speeches, what to come and say for the next United Nations summit. While all around Africa, war are roaming around by the influence of the so-called UN, by the influence of the so-called international community. Proxy war supported by these international organizations are roaming around in Africa. But Africa's leaders are planning what to come and say for the next United Nations summit. How sad is that? When the war have come to a point to understand there is no organization called United Nations. When the United Nations herself is making it clear. Because Africa have come to understand but our leaders, they are not yet getting it. Let's continue here. Let's continue here. Let's continue. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned the Security Council Wednesday that the war in the Gaza Strip may aggregate existing threats to international peace and security. Now, what is that existing? Because you cannot call the issue already in Palestine or already in Gaza, right? Existing threat. There's an English he spoke here. Let me read it again. The UN Security Council, Antonio Guterres, warned that the Security Council Wednesday that the war in the Gaza Strip is already there. Okay, we know. But he said, in parentheses or in quote, may aggregate existing threat to the international peace and security. What that mean here is, the first part in the first article that we saw, right? What happened? The Arab nations have come to realize how useless the United Nations is. Let me repeat again. The Arab nations have come to realize how useless the United Nations is. The Arab nations have come to realize how biased the United Nations is. That's one. Number two, as Antonio Guterres said, now that the Arab nations are drifting away from the United Nations, okay, what's going to happen here? Other nations, specifically the African continent, might I use the word purposely, might, because we have African slaves. That's why I say might. It's not sure. Might also form their African alliances that will drift away from the United Nations. Yeah, God. Africa. And the reality here is, anything that the war brings, when I say the war, I mean the West. Anything the West negotiate, as long Africa is not part in its current time, is never going to work, is never going to hold. So that is what Antonio Guterres said may also be a threat to international peace and security. The so-called international peace and security that they say they are carrying on the African continent, that means it will become a threat to the UN interest in Africa. The United Nations will no longer have a place in DRC Congo to loot its resources. The United Nations will no longer have a place in Africa that international organization will use to create proxy war. Because most of these organizations pass through the United Nations to create proxy war in Africa. That's why you have all organizations in collaboration with the UN that are in Africa saying they are there for humanitarian purposes. If there is peace, there is no humanitarian. That Africans, we should come to realize. That African leaders come to realize it. If there is peace and no war in your country, there will be no humanitarian purposes. America is protecting her peace by all means, by all costs. Where are the humanitarians that are coming from all around the world coming to America? First of all, if something happening within the United States, they do not accept donation from outside. They say if you are donating, donation should come from within. They do not accept donation from outside because they know the ramification of accepting outside donation. They use it to bully all African nations, to bully other nations. So they do not want to be bullied. That's why they don't accept outside donation. They will say the earthquake that took place, or how they call it, the hurricane that took place, we are accepting donation, but donation comes from within. Because they do not want to be bullied. Because they know they use that to bully other nations. They use that to protect their foreign policy in other nations. So Antonio Guterres is telling us, if African leaders wake up, not just the Arab trade or the Arab nation are uniting, but if African leaders see it, that the United Nations is useless, just how the Arab nation have recognized how useless the United Nations is, because as we speak, Antonio Guterres now, okay, in his mind, he's saying as we speak, the United Nations is surviving from resources, from looting African resources. So if African unites, where the United Nations can no longer loot African resources, where will the funds come from? The United Nations loot your resources and then come in and bring little as humanitarian aid. Let me take that out. Okay, let me take that out. Let's see another one again. Let's see another article again, all right? Let's see another article again. Now, before we see that article, let me bring something different here. Okay? Let's just take a quick break with this. Let's take a quick break with this.
And they want us to allow ourselves to be oppressed. I can't solve the problem. You guys pull the strings that close schools. You guys draw the boundaries that keep our kids restricted to the ghetto. You guys write up the restrictive covenants that keep us out of houses. So it's up to you to talk to your brothers and your sisters and persuade them that they have a responsibility. We've assumed ours for over 400 years, and we're tired of this kind of stuff now. We're not going to suffer patiently anymore. No more turning the other cheek. No more blessing our enemies. No more praying for those who despitefully use us. We're going to show you that we've learned the lessons you've taught us. We've studied your history, and you did not take over this country by singing "We Shall Overcome." You did not gain control of the world like you have it now by dealing fairly with a man and keeping your word. You're treaty breakers, you're liars, you're thieves, you rape entire continents and races of people. Then you wonder why these very people don't have any confidence or trust in you. Your religion means nothing. Your law is a farce, and we see it every day. You demonstrated it, and you couldn't walk around and talk to people, stand up in your pulpit on Sunday and preach nice little songs and say, now we're going to give thanks to the Lord for he is good and old Jesus be among us. As far as we're concerned, your Jesus is contaminated, just like everything else you tried to force upon us is contaminated. Problem exists because white people think they're better than black people, and they want to oppress us, and they want us to allow ourselves to be oppressed. I can't solve the problem. You guys pull the strings that close schools. You guys draw the boundaries that keep our kids restricted to the ghetto. You guys write up the restrictive covenants that keep us out of houses. So it's up to you to talk to.
This is exactly the United Nations. This is exactly, okay, what the oppressor do. Anything of the oppressor is not good. Anything of the oppressor is not good. Anything of the colonizer is not good. They are just so much heartless, sophisticated, okay, in bringing it to you that you think is of good. It's not good. That's what Adam Smith said. It will come a time to the colonial master, to the enslaver. It will come a time if it costs you to sit on the same table with the black man, your slave, to drink, to share cup, do it. Do not have white on it and black on it. Don't have that. If you have that, they will rebel against you. They will come against you. Do not have a barroom to say black on it, white on it. Do not have a restaurant to say white on it, black on it. If it comes to that point, you guys should sit in the same restaurant, on the same table and eat, but they are still your slave. You gotta be sophisticated in how you deal with them.
Western countries have given financial and military support to groups in Uganda and Rwanda who have been instructed to enslave the Congolese people to work and mine a resource called cobalt. What is cobalt? Cobalt is a resource that is inside your phone, or the lithium found in electric cars. It's all derived from cobalt. The countries who are pushing to have this is France, America, and the British. The world is distracting us with many things, but a silent cleanse is taking place with the people of Congo who refuse to work or are being forced to work so the West can take these resources. The media is not covering them. Go search for anything Congo related, and you will see how little coverage they are getting. Use this filter on the bottom left, post a video private or public. This will help generate money for Congo. A man set himself on fire to tell the world what's happening in Congo. The Western countries have given financial and military support to groups in Uganda and Rwanda who have been instructed to enslave the Congolese people to work and mine a resource called cobalt. What is cobalt? Cobalt is a resource that is inside your phone, or the lithium found in electric cars. It's all derived from cobalt. The countries who are pushing to have this is France, America, and the British. The world is distracting us with many things, but a silent cleanse is taking place with the people of Congo who refuse to work
or are being forced to work so the West can take these resources. The media is not covering them. Go search for anything Congo related, and you will see how little coverage they are getting. Use this filter on the bottom left, post a video private or public.
Okay. Now, so you see what happened in DRC Congo, right? A man set himself on fire. Why did he do that? Right? People may ask, why did he do that? You know why he did it? For over centuries, the United States, Israel, Europe have been funding, along with the United Nations, funding proxy war, supporting terrorist activities in DRC Congo. This man killed himself, set himself on fire, so that it would draw attention to the war. But did you see this on any media? Did you see that on the media? No. But when the so-called United Nations workers got killed by Congolese and said we do not want United Nations in our country, the United Nations is looting our resources, when one of its workers were killed by the Congolese, it made national news. It made national news. And when I say national news, I mean the colonial news. It made colonial news on CNN, BBC, and the rest. And they said the Congolese have killed a UN worker. But on the colonial news, we did not see it when the United Nations had an accident in DRC Congo with a truck worth billions of dollars. We did not see it on national news. Why would the United Nations have an accident with billions of mineral resources that they were taken to the port to be taken to Europe and America? It was never on national news. It was never on national media. No, we did not see it. But the so-called African leaders will go against Africans who want to fight these colonizers. The so-called African leaders will go against Africans who want to fight against American selfish foreign policy. And the colonial media will use that individual who want to fight, or will use an individual who will go against the person who is fighting against the interests of the colonizer. The colonizer media will use anybody as a good person, portray a person as a good person, as the hero, who will go against somebody who is fighting their interests. And they will publish that person as the leader, the next leader to be in our country for the people. And if you don't mind, based on the ignorance of our people, they will think whosoever that the colonial media is portraying as the right person or the next person in command of their country, the people will think that man is the good person. The mindset of a colonized mind. The colonizer are so sophisticated, as Adam Smith told them what to do to control the brain of the slave. To control the brain, the mind of a colony. The reason why you will not see it on the colonial media that a man put himself on fire to signal to the world the injustices that is happening in DRC Congo. It will go against Europe and America. because I will draw the attention of the injustices of the proxy war, of the involvement of Europe and America in a proxy war in DRC Congo. It will draw attention and it will make a lot of people to start doing research. And as they do research, they will come to find out that Washington, D.C., that Europe, they are involved in the issue in DRC. Down to the United Nations, people will come to understand what is going on in DRC Congo. It is not of the people, but it is because of Europe and America and the so-called United Nations. People will come to understand. So they will not show it. Be careful of Europe and America. Be careful of the colonizer. Their words are smooth like butter. Or war is in their hearts. Their words are smooth like oil, but sword are in their hands. Be careful with them. Let's continue here with the United Nations. Let's continue. Okay, so here is another article again, right? About the United Nations. So listen, folks, we have brought different articles now. I think 3 or 4 articles, right? About this United Nations from different perspectives, right? Now, look at another one here again. Guterres says, UN Security Council paralyzed over Gaza. Now, we read the first one, right? We read the first article that says, the Arab nations have seen how useless the United Nations is, because the United Nations is useless because it's not a war-body organization. It is an organization of the United States and Europe interest. That's what makes it useless and biased. Henceforth, the Arab nations are now coming together because they have seen what is behind the marks. I'm sorry for Africa. Africa have not yet seen it. The Arab nation have seen what is behind the marks of the United Nations. So they said the United Nations is useless and biased. So the Arab nations are now forming their alliances to come together to have one common denominator and one common understanding and fight the devil and fight their enemy. Now you know who their enemies are. I don't have to tell you. Right? Then the second article. What the second article says? The second article says, the war in Gaza will also cause an existing threat to the interests of the United Nations in Africa. Even though they did not say exactly, but that's what they meant. The war in Gaza will cause an existing threat or interest. They say existing threat. But what they're trying to say here is will cause an existing interest issue in Africa if African people to realize that the Arab nation have realized that the United Nations is useless and they are uniting. And the African nation realized that and they began to collaborate to form an alliances or to form their African unity is going to be a threat. It's going to be a threat to our interest on the African continent. That's the second article, right? Now, look at the third article what it says. Guterres says, UN Security Council paralyzed over Gaza. So now you see it. What he's trying to say here, as we all know, paralyzed means what? Fail. Paralyzed means a fail. It's damaged. It's done because the Arab nation are falling apart. And not just the Arab nation, But the war in Gaza have exposed the United Nations, have exposed Europe, have exposed America. What's going to happen here? The Asian nations as well. Only Africa is still sleeping. Only Africa is still sleeping because, you know, Africa is a breeding ground for Europe and America. Africa is a breeding ground for the colonizer. Africa is a breeding ground for the enslaver. That's why the Chinese stood up against Europe, or they stood up against England when they went to colonize China. That's why the Indians stood against England when they went to colonize India. Oh, Africa, we never stand against the oppressor. We never stand against our enemies. Maybe in this one we will. I don't know. That's why he said the United Nations Security Council is paralyzed. But we African, we're not getting it. We have not yet gotten it. We have not yet gotten it. The Arab nations are uniting. The Asian nations are uniting. Oh, Mama Africa. We are still warning and dining. When the general, the male who, how they call it, is the general for the UN, has said it clear. The United Nations Security Council is paralyzed. That means it's done because the Arab nation have gone, or they are going. The Asian nation, oh, China, you think China going to sit down and they already know the United Nations is useless? The United States always veto things that is not in your interest, even though it's humanity, but the United Nations will veto it. The United States will veto it. England will veto it as long as it is not in your interest, even though it pertains to humanity. Oh, the United Nations is useless. It's biased. Then you see the issue in Ukraine. Then you see the United States involvement. Then you see Europe, the entire Europe involvement. The United Nations is useless, it's biased, it's paralyzed, it's done. But all the Africans are still there holding on to the so-called United Nations. Let's continue here. Oh, Africa. Oh, Mama Africa. What is wrong? Let's read here. On Sunday, the United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres expressed disappointment over the Security Council inability to call for a ceasefire in Gaza Strip. Why will they be disappointed? Because the United States hold on to the key. Who is stopping the United Nations to carry ceasefire in Gaza? If the United Nations want to carry ceasefire in DRC Congo, even if the DRC Congolese president said no, will the United Nations agree to DRC? Even though the man is the president, the United Nations, I believe now, they will never listen because they will say it's humanity. In fact, they will go against that president and make sure and take him to the World Criminal Court. Because they see it as nothing. Because they see that the United Nations is the world battery organization. They will go after their leaders. But why will the United States veto a ceasefire case? And then the United Nations said they are disappointed because of their inability. Oh, Africa, when are we going to wake up from this nightmare? When other nations are uniting based on their common interests, based on their identity, based on their continent, based on their jurisdiction, based on where they are, based on what they have seen. Oh, Africa, when are we going to see it? Let's read here. Let me read the whole thing again. On Sunday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed disappointment over the Security Council inability to call for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. He went on to say he denounced that the division. So there is a division within the United Nations, right? Oh, Africa. These are the people you depending on to carry peace. These are the people who say they are human rights advocates. And you listen to them. But he said he denounced the division that have effectively paralyzed the functioning of the world body. Then how can the United States, how can the UN come to Africa and come and tell you African leaders, look, this thing is hurting me. It's hurting me to the extent that I don't know how we can explain this for our African leader to understand that nothing is better until Africa is free. That nothing is better until African youth, until African people live a better life. Nothing is beyond until African people are in their place, are controlling their resources. When our African leader understand U.S. Secretary General Anthony Guterres said he regrets the Security Council failures to demand a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, condemning the division that have paralyzed the world body. The body authority and credibility were severely undermined by its delayed response to the conflict, he said, 2 days after a U.S. veto. After the United States veto prevented a resolution calling for a Gaza ceasefire. Let me take this out. Now, do you understand here now? Have you seen it? Who is the cause of the war in Palestine? Who is the cause of the war in Gaza? The United States. Who is the cause? No peace in Palestine. The United States. Who is the cause? No peace in Gaza. The United States. You have seen it. This is not opinion. You have seen it. Now, the question then becomes, who are the people, who are the cause no peace in DRC Congo? The United States, Europe, Asia. They are the cause no peace in Africa. United States was the cause of the calamity, of the disaster in Libya today. Where is the democracy they promised the people? Where is the peace they promised the people? The people even live a better life under Gaddafi than the life they are living under America, Libya. The people of Libya live a better life under Gaddafi than the life they are living under America, Libya. And these are the same people that African leaders will come in Washington, D.C. to sit and listen to them about how to rule their country, Africa, how to rule their continent, Africa. They see hypocrite. They see demons. They see devil. They see enemies.
The apartheid in South Africa and exploitation of Africa as a whole is linked with Israel. Israel's largest export is diamonds, with 0 diamond mines in Israel. Their monopoly over the diamond industry is soaked in the blood of Africans. One of the oligarchs behind the killing of Congo's first prime minister was Maurice Templesman, a diamond magnate who used his wealth to lobby politicians in Russia, USA, and Africa. After Lumumba was executed, Templesman made sure the puppet Mobutu remained in power by using the CIA agent Larry Devlin to manipulate the geopolitical landscape of Congo and South Africa. For Israeli-owned diamond companies like De Beers to remain exploiting Africa after we gained independence. De Beers was founded by Cecil Rhodes with the funding of the Rothschilds, then sold to the Oppenheimer family years later. The company De Beers still exploits Africa's diamonds to this day, funded the apartheid in South Africa in the 90s, and today funds Israel's ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Since then, nothing has changed apart from they now have a Black Panther actress as their global ambassador and pretend to support BLM once a year. In fact, De Beers endorsed the taking down of Rhodes' statue to portray that his colonial past shouldn't be glorified, a symbolic gesture to cover up the fact that nothing has changed. They will try and satisfy our rage with symbolic victories like BLM, but that's for another video. The irony of Lupita Nyong'o being the global ambassador for De Beers is laughable. In the movie Black Panther, her real-life character would be a villain. Africa is still controlled by megacorporations like De Beers, Shell, Glencore PLC, and Barrick Gold, which use their stranglehold over our resources to micromanage the continent and fund Israel, resulting in mass poverty and mass migration due to living conditions are unstable. They have selected our leaders ever since our independence, and when a leader or activist steps out of line, they have them executed. This is
So you see how sophisticated Adam Smith told the colonizer. So you see how they operate. So you see how these organizations still control Africa. You see how these organizations are the one funding proxy war. You see how these organizations are the ones supporting the terrorists. You see how these organizations are the ones giving ammunition to the rebels. Now you wonder why in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, when they took them out, now you wonder how the terrorists got angry. They start fighting the military. But when they were there, you hardly see the terrorists. Now you wonder. Adam Smith told the colonial master, the slave master, do not make your slave to think you hate them. Feed them if they need food. Then they will gain more strength to be more productive. Clothe them if they need clothes. They will feel more important in society. Give them medical treatment if they need it, so that it will be hefty. They will not think you hate them because you go for the same medical treatment when you are ill or when you are sick. So they go for the same treatment when they are ill, when they are sick. They will not see you as a slave master. They will not see you as a slave master. They will think they are free. In their mind, they will be free. That's how they think. But you control their entire existence. He told them, give them their need, and they will work for you. They will fight for you. Adam Smith in the 1800s. That's why he told a slave master in Washington, D.C. They call him there. They call him there in Washington, D.C. for advice. as an economist. Oh, I see African people running all around the father of economic when they're ready to quote Adam Smith as the father of economic. And they heal him, they praise him, but not knowing when he was the father, when they refers to him as the father of economic, at that time, he was giving a slave master how to think with the slave. And today, that advice is working for them. Why it is again our interest. To the extent we have some of our own black people, our black leaders, who are giving differential treatment. And they think the slave master loved them. To the extent they cannot invest medically in their country. But when they're sick, they come to their slave master home and they give them good differential treatment. They treat them well. Adam Smith told them what to do. African leaders who are still sitting and waiting for the next United Nations summit to come. They are now writing their letter. They are now focusing on what is affecting their people. They are now focusing on what is going on in the world, while other nations' war are uniting and drifting away from the so-called useless United Nations controlled by Europe and America. But African leaders are sitting, waiting for the next United Nations summit. They are sitting, waiting for when Joe Biden will call them. They are sitting, waiting for when Kamala Harris will visit them on the African continent. They are sitting, waiting for the next $10 million to be given to them. They are sitting and waiting.
Competitor? Are you an ally? Are you a threat? How would you regard your relationship with Britain? First of all, between China and Britain, from the Chinese perspective, Britain is not a rival, is not a competitor, it is not an enemy, is not an adversary. Britain is just an important country to get along with in peace and in friendship and for mutual benefit. Now, how Britain looks at China, it's up to the British government and people to decide. But I think it would be completely misguided for Britain to view China as an enemy or adversary or a competitor. What do China and Britain compete with? China is the largest manufacturer of automobiles. Competing with Britain? No. China is the largest exporter of EV cars and will lead the whole world in EV production. Is Britain a competitor? No. China will be the biggest and most important producer and R&D in terms of semiconductor in no time. Does that mean that China competes with Britain? No. China will be the leading nation in AI revolution. Is Britain a competitor? No. So I think British government should not overestimate its impact on the global scene and view Britain as a rival of China. China is not. China is a fact. China is a megatrend. For Britain to...
This Chinese spokesperson just schooled the UK journalist.
Debate in Britain about what language we use about China. Are you a competitor? Are you an ally? Are you a threat? How would you regard your relationship with Britain?
Okay. Now, what did we learn from this video, or what can we conclude from this video we just played? You know, when you know your thing and when you know your position, such question will never intimidate you. But this kind of a question will intimidate our African leaders. And that's why this Chinese sat there and told this colonizer journalists, this oppressor journalists, this enslaver journalists, these Western journalists. Great Britain have nothing to offer China. We are not running competition with, Great Britain have nothing to offer China, and China is not running competition with Great Britain. You know why? Because we do not want nothing for Great Britain. We do not want aid from Great Britain. Oh, well, that's why the Chinese were telling Great Britain. They're telling that guy. We do not want aid from Great Britain. After war, now we tell you this. What we do? We are not running competition with Great Britain. We are the largest producer of automobile in the world. We are the producer of our own existence. And secondly, we resisted you when you came to colonize us. That's why he was telling our journalist. But oh, Africa, when are we going to tell Europe and America? We are not running competition with Europe and America. After all, we are the largest producer of diamond in the world. After all, we got uranium, we got timber, we got natural gas running all the way from Niger that you want in Germany, you want in England, you want in America. But we said, no, you are not running your backland. When are we going to stand against these people or stand towards these people? When are we going to tell these people you are the one receiving aid from Africa? Without Africa, you cannot survive. When are we going to tell these people we have oil? Without our oil, our gas, you will not have shit. You will not have any gas station in Europe and America. When are we going to tell these people? When are we going to tell these people? When are we going to be bold? You know why? We will not be bold because of our leader that we have who still rely on aid. And aid is a form of oppression. Because once who feed you, dictate to you, tell you what to do. Because you depend on that person for feeding. It's like a child. You have nowhere to go hunt or fetch for food. You only hunt or fetch for food in your father's house, in your mother's house. And your mother or your father says, you are not eating today if you disobey me. You are not eating today if you don't go by my policy. You are not eating today if you don't listen to me to do what I want you to do. At the end of the day, you know there's nowhere you will go fetch for food. What will you do? You will listen to the voice of your mother or your father, whether you like it or not. How can a continent that is so rich, a continent that is number one in the world in terms of resources and human capacity, how can we still be depending on a nation that is not rich, or a nation whose population are in their 70, 80, their working population? How can a continent with the youngest labor force and the richest continent in the world still depend on a continent or a nation that have nothing? Well, the Chinese sat down there and said, don't bring that nonsense, Great Britain. Europe, don't bring that nonsense to us. We are not running competition, but rather you want to run competition with us. Almost everything in America, we produce it. That's what the Chinese man was telling him. Almost everything in Europe, we produce it. It comes from China. How are you telling us we are running competition with you? When we produce almost everything in Europe, in America, it comes from China. We produce it. It's Chinese made. Why you want to tell us we are not running competition? Because just one button we block, your economy will go down. Your economy will fail. Oh, Africa. When are we going to say the same thing too?
Shame, we say, to the United States of America. Shame, 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 we say, to Britain and its allies. Why, I ask, should Zimbabweans continue to suffer under the American and European yoke of unjustified and unwarranted illegal sanctions? These evil sanctions violate the fundamental principles of the United Nations Charter and should be condemned. We call on those who continue to harbor ill will against us to cast away their hegemony-driven hostility as we appeal to them to review their hard and cruel positions and open a new chapter in their relations with us based on mutual respect and friendly cooperation. Shame, 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 we say.
Now, you know what? Robert Mugabe was alive. Most African leaders did not like Robert Mugabe. And they did not like Robert Mugabe. Those leaders that did not like him, they were puppets. They were colonial puppets. They were slaves. Even some individual Africans who were just common advocates, who don't understand or who did not understand at that time. Maybe some of them now, they got the picture after Robert Mugabe is dead or after he's gone, right? You see, when Robert Mugabe was in power, or before he got in power, he was one in a dining with the colonizer, right? With Great Britain, with America. At that time, do you know that they said Robert Mugabe was the best president? He was the best man to lead because he was one in a dining? Oh yes, they said it. America said it. But the moment he went toward the land deal for Zimbabwe to have ownership of the land, he became an enemy to Europe and America interest. Africa, we didn't get it yet. You see, the colonizer, no matter how there are differences, when it comes to their interest, boy, they're going to put their differences aside and punish anybody who they feel will be threat to their interest. But these are the people who said Robert Mugabe was a dictator, right? They use all kind of adjectives to describe this man. And we so-called, some of us so-called naive Africans, we believe it. And we thought Robert Mugabe was the bad man, he was a dictator. All we know he's a dictator because he spent a lot of years in power. Robert Mugabe did not want to give power up. And the colonial media used that to our ignorance, and we believe it. And we ourselves, some of us most of us went against Robert Mugabe. And we thought Robert Mugabe was the bad man because he's a dictator, right? It turned away our mind, it turned away our focus of what the United States and Great Britain were doing against Zimbabwe. It was not about Robert Mugabe. It was about Zimbabwe. We did not know that America hated Zimbabwe. We did not know that Europe hated Zimbabwe. We did not know that these are colonizers trying to maintain their status in Zimbabwe. All we thought, Robert Mugabe spent 20 years in power. But the reality here is Robert Mugabe, or was Robert Mugabe the only president in Africa that's still in power? Why can't the United States talk about Bombia in Cameroon? Why can't the United States talk about Farouk in Togo? Why can't Europe talk about Farouk or Bombia in those places? Why can't they talk about it? Why can't they say those people are dictators? They are taking long time in power. Why? Because those people set their interests. America is not about humanity. America does not serve humanity. humanity. Europe does not serve humanity. They are the worst when it comes to humanity. They have committed more atrocity against humanity. The sanction against Robert Mugabe, it was not against him. It was against the people of Zimbabwe. Now, Robert Mugabe died long term. He's gone. He's dead. He's rotting. If possible, his bones have all been mixed up with mud, with dirt. It's turned black. It's gone, right? Why is the sanction still on Zimbabwe if Robert Mugabe was the problem? If Robert Mugabe was dictator, but he died, why is the sanction stay on Zimbabwe? I ask you, so-called Negro, you so-called slave, I ask you people who believe in America, who commits the worst crime in the world, I ask you people, is Robert Mugabe still alive? Is Robert Mugabe still holding Zimbabwe? The sanction is on Zimbabwe because the Zimbabwean are not in agreement for the colonizer to go and recolonize them, to take their land, to take their resources. That's what the sanction is still on Zimbabwe. And that's how most individuals in other individual nations today, in other individual African nations, are being sanctioned by the United States because the United States feed those people in that country. They are threats to the United States interest. Robert Mugabe told us he was not the problem. But we sat down there and said, you are the problem because you don't want to leave power. When are we going to stop listening to Europe and America telling us what to do in Africa, telling us about our affair? When? Why can't Europe and America talk about Pombia, who been in power for almost 50 years? Have one day America ever talked about Pombia being a dictator or to leave power? Have one day America ever stopped making business or trade agreement with the leader in Togo who have been in power for over 50 years? But America will come in and make decisions and talk. Then we take it. Oh, America has spoken. Oh, this is what Washington, D.C. say. They are the worst when it comes to humanity in the world. They don't protect humanity. They don't care for humanity. They don't care.
Trying to teach us how to run our country. Naturally, we resist that. We do not accept. We are not a British colony any longer. When we have difficulties, Britain has no right at all to try and suggest to the rest of the world that we are a failure. Nor have they a right to try and suggest to us what we should do. We are not an extension of Britain, we have said. And so this is the main area of difference between them and ourselves. If there is any country we should now be considered for sanctions, it's Britain for interfering in the domestic affairs of Zimbabwe. Well, the British have no standards apparently to guide them. And if they do, they would be misfiring. And since I'm here, I will take care of them. The UK is trying to...
This is why they put sanctions on Zimbabwe. Because of his leadership capability. Because he believed that Africans are capable of ruling themselves. Africans are capable of taking care of their own affairs. He believed that, in fact, the struggle that Zimbabwe went through to gain independence, it was because of the colonizer. He believed that the struggle Zimbabwe went through, the suffering, the torture, and the humiliation that Zimbabwe went through, it was through the colonizer. It was through Europe and America. So that's despite that, Europe and America are not and will never be in a position to tell Zimbabwe, to tell Robert Mugabe how to rule Africa. When the torture and the humiliation, the looting the Africans suffer was in the hands of Europe and America. When Zimbabwe said they gain independent from who? From the sky? From the animal running, from the giraffe, from the lion? No, they gain independent from the British. And that independent king was being the suffering. That's why they hated Mugabe. That's why they didn't want Mugabe. Because he was not a leader that to be controlled. He was a leader that fought for his people. But now, some of you may say, then why he was in power? You know why? Why should he leave power? To get the country from another puppet, then why he, Mugabe, sit and watch his people torture? Why his people go through captivity? Because Robert Mugabe knew, whether he live or not, his people will go through captivity. So instead of his people going through captivity, while the country is in another person's hand that is still being looted by Europe and in America, it better he be there so that he will preserve the resources while his people along with him go through captivity. Isn't it? When Great Britain was there, was anything better for the African or for Zimbabwe? That's what they winner. When the presence of Great Britain, when they were there, did anything go right for the Zimbabwe? The Zimbabwe resources were being looted, while the Zimbabwe themselves were on the farm working as slaves, while the product were being taken to Europe and America. So Robert Mugabe said, there is two things. If I leave, they're going to exploit the people, they're going to exploit our resources and still take it to Europe. And the life of my people will not still be better. It will be worse. So this is what I will do. I will stay and will take the heat. And the resources will stay. Even if it go for 27, 30 years, the resources will stay. We will fight. Even if this generation will not inherit, this generation will not enjoy it. It will stay for the next generation to come. And Zimbabwe today is still fighting that fight. The sanction is still on Zimbabwe. They want America to go to any African nation to put sanction on any Africans. And then they say they are fighting for human rights. This person violated human rights. We all know if America is against a leader, that person is a leader for you. If America is pressing up for a leader, that person is not a leader. That person is a traitor. Anyway, let's watch the last video and we'll call it for the day. I'll show this video at the beginning and I'm just going to run it up and watch it and then close with it.
Protect this man at all costs. I will repeat that. We need to protect this man at all costs. Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso is showing us how a true and good leader should be. This is a man to look up to, and our leaders need to take a notebook, right? Take their pen, their imported pen, right? And write down each and everything that this young man that's probably half their age is doing. I need you to watch this video, fam. I found it on Instagram. Their page is called West Indie Made.
The young captain was having a conversation with the pupils. And here is what he's saying. I was telling you a while ago, in school they were telling us that we couldn't do it here. They lied to us. We grow wheat here and it works well, and we will develop it. Some people have started this year. I was able to see people who did it as part of the presidential initiative. And I was told that in the past, Some were able to do it, and they produced it well. Currently, we are sowing wheat in some farmlands as part due the presidential initiative. What you eat must be produced here. So, this is why I say that we will teach you many things, and we will review the curricula they teach you. For those who drink coffee, they told us that your coffee, chocolate, it is only in the countries with abundant rainfalls, that here is only savanna desert. It does not rain, we cannot farm. Again, they lied to us. It's not true. Coffee grows well here. Cocoa grows well too. There are people here who have the farms here. Even in Ouagadougou here, there are people who have cocoa trees in their yards. This means that chocolate that children envy those from well-to-do families can be manufactured here in Burkina, and all the children can eat chocolate in Burkina. We found out it is possible. As for milk, why do we have to import it? We can do it. I just want to tell you that there are many things that they never told us the truth about. You guys are lucky. We are now teaching you, and we promise you that we will do all we can so that you can eat your fill. As we say, you will eat well in the morning before you go to school. You will go to school for free. You will eat lunch. You will have fun. And in the afternoon when you return home, you will have fun in the neighborhood. Then in the evening, you will learn and review your homework and sleep. This is the dream we have. As long as the children in Burkina are not in these conditions, our fight will not stop, okay? Claps. So we know these are your aspirations and it is right and legal. Any parent is fighting for this. Even those who do not have children fight in the hope of having children and to take care of them so that they can live in better conditions and be better than them. This is the fight of everyone. This is the fight of every generation. We are lucky God gave us everything. Do you know that everywhere in Burkina we can farm? Everywhere. In the Sahel where they tell you it is the desert, it is only sand. We can farm. As for us, we have been lied to so much. It is the brainwashing of the colonizer. He did that so that we may not think. But we finally found out that everything was a lie. Damn lie. Emphasis is mine. If God left many lakes in that desert, he knows why. We can farm everything in Burkina. We can do everything. The land is fertile. And there are so many natural things in Burkina that we never planted. But they were here, isn't it? Have you ever learned how to plant a shea tree in Burkina? You were born and found them already here, right? It is there in the wild in nature. You know it is a gift from God. There are many things in the shea fruit. You have the shea butter, that is oil. Do you know that there is chocolate in it? There are 7 derivatives in the shea fruit. You also have the Parkia biglobosa, also known as the African locust bean, which is a natural fruit. We have many things. It is not only the minerals in the soil. Even with the soil, we were told that it's ferritic soil, that it is not fertile. Everything is a lie. You see that today there is so much gold in Burkina, but it is just poorly managed. Our mission is to well manage these resources and to take good care of you, so that you can be in your basic rights, to lead a good life, to go to school, and that we may protect you. And also that you may fulfill your duties, because your duties are very important, aren't they? You must fulfill your duties. Don't stop only at your rights. When people tell you have rights, add and duties. You have duties towards your parents, seniors, the homeland. You have duties. Someone mentioned traffic lights and all that. You may see a grown person who doesn't respect the traffic lights. But there are schools where they teach you, and we wish it be in all the schools. All right, folks. Our educational system inherited from colonialism is one of the worst legacies we still have in Francophone countries. There are subjects and curricula that are obsolete since the 1960s. I told a friend that France even controlled our educational system to the extent some programs such as mining are never taught in schools and universities. Too bad, but things are changing.
So as you saw, this young president
Shout out to Reverend. Reverend, shout out for the donation to the VCC. Shout out to you. All right, so you are saying what we have today to discuss. The reality here is we as Africans, especially African leaders, you are the one in position that is ruling, that is leading. Do the right thing. We don't have to sit to wait for America to come and tell what is right, or Europe to come and tell what is right, what is not right. We are not little children. They are not God for us. We are our own God. So why should we sit down and wait for them to come and tell us what to do? To come and tell what grows in our land, what does not grow there, to come and tell how valuable our resources are and how less valuable they are, to come and tell which one is worth with their dollar. Okay? Meanwhile, no one will come in America to tell Washington, D.C. or to tell the leaders how valuable this is and how less valuable this is, or how much they can pay for this. No one will come to America to tell America how ill their democracy is. No one will come and tell them they are not practicing democracy. No one will come and tell them how racism is destroying this country. No one will come and tell them how inequality exists, how inequality is at the higher peaks in this country. No one will come and tell them. No one will come and tell them how certain people have privileges in this country and certain people do not have the same privilege or privileges in this country. No one will come and tell them. No one will come and tell them that the Constitution of this land does not protect every citizen equally in this land. No one will come and tell them the Constitution of this land does not apply to everybody in this land. No one will come and tell them. But knowingly, we know the Constitution does not apply to everybody. The protection of the Constitution does not apply to everybody. No one will come and tell them. No one will come and tell them why certain people live in certain neighborhoods and certain people live in other places. No one will come and tell them. No one will come and tell them why certain people are always denied from buying houses or property in other places. No one will come and tell them. No one will come and tell them why certain people, when they are seen walking in certain neighborhood, they call the police on them and say, "You're not supposed to live here." No one will tell them. But why these same people will come to our place, to our nation, our continent, come and tell us about human rights, and then we take it, we honor it. Have you seen America in China talking about human rights? It will never happen because the Chinese will put them in their places. Have you seen America in England talking about human rights? It will never happen. Well, oh, Africa, poor Africa, is the place they will go. As we speak, they will not go in the Middle East and talk about human rights. America will never go in the Middle East and talk about human rights. They will only sit in America and talk about human rights and say the Middle Eastern, they are suffering this, they are doing this to women, or they are beating women, or women have to dress a certain way. They will only sit here and throw the rock. But they will never go there in our land and talk about human rights. Because you know what? They have violated human rights in our country. They have bombed that country. They have killed babies. They have killed women. So they will never be in our land to talk about human rights. Those people they will put them in their places. So they will only sit here and chunk the rock and talk about human rights. But they will go on the African continent and talk about human rights. And the African people will never custom them. African leaders will never custom them. But I dare them to go to other places. They won't go there. They will sit here and criticize our country. They will never go there. But they will go on the African continent and criticize us when they have committed heinous crime on the African continent.
Now is the solution for the whole world in terms of climate. Now, the country that is us the solution for the whole world. Here the people are suffering here. Is that right? Is that right? I want the whole Africa and the whole world to hear this. If we are here, it's not because we want to live in this street here. No one in this world would prefer to stay in the street with his family. Do you understand? We ran away from our country because of the crisis. And that crisis is this international communities that are causing it. And all of you, you know, you are aware, we are aware of that. They are using Rwanda. They are using Rwanda to attack our eastern part of the country so that we must not be stable. We must be running here and there to other countries.
And what do you want the South African government to do about that?
All we want to do, the UNHCR agency, they have the rights to protect the refugees. Is this how they protect refugees? And the UN, they're there in DRC. They call it MONUSCO. They've been there for more than 25 years. Still, there was no solution for that problem. Men, I want to speak out because we've been quiet for a long time. DRC now is the solution for the whole world in terms of climate. Now, the country that is as the solution for the whole world. Here, the people are suffering here. Is that right? Is that right? I want the whole Africa and the whole world to hear this. If we are here, it's not because we want to live in this street here. No one in this world would prefer to stay in the street with his family. Do you understand? We ran away from our country because of the crisis. And that crisis is this international communities that are causing it. And all of you, you know, you are aware, we are aware of that. They are using Rwanda. They are
even the layman on the street know that America is part of the war in DRC Congo. Europe is part of the crisis in DRC Congo. The American organizations, European, very organization, Israel's very organization, the colonizer, the money they use during slavery, when they use black people as property, the money, the wealth they got from using black people as property to build their economy, their organizations, the money they got from colonizing the African continent, the resources they got from it that have put them in position of power today, they are using that same money to form proxy war on the African continent. Let you say. The same international community are part of the crisis. Wasn't the United States that trained Paul Kagame and the Ugandan president to go into DRC Congo? Wasn't the same CIA that trained the Paul Kagame? These are the same thing we are talking about. That Adam Smith told them. Treat your slave well. Let them work for you. Do not think. Do not make them to feel that you hate them. They will rebel against you. Do not make your slave to rebel against you. The same colonizer went and told us the Tutsis and the Hutus were enemies. And we believe it. And we fought against each other. They brought their army, ammunition, and gave it to us. And they make us seem that we are enemies. Meanwhile, in Europe, the West are never enemies. Even though they may not be friends, even though they may have their differences, they are never enemies when it comes to their interests. But when it comes to us, it relies on our issues, our differences that we have. And then they make us to hate each other. And after they see that they have reached to a point where we can fight each other, then they bring their arm and ammunition, their mass destructions of weapons, they bring it and share among us. And guess what? When they come, they know if the Tutsi, for example, if the Tutsi is powerful than the Houthis, what they're going to do here is they will give more supply to the Tutsis that is powerful, for example. And then they will still supply the Tutsis or the Houthis, they will still supply them, but with less weapon, because they want for you both to fight. Do you see what is going on here? They want for you both to fight because they want for one to be more powerful that will destroy and kill. They did the same thing in Liberia. When American army ammunition wasted in Liberia, and we kill each other. That's how they work. That's the technique. They come into our countries. They rely on the issue, on the conflicting issue that is going on. And then they use that to solve their international issues in our country. And we think we are fighting against each other. We hate each other. And then they will come from there and then write a book and say the Tutsis and the Houthis were enemies. They couldn't see one another. But then, where the CIA came from to train Paul Kagame and train Museveni to go in the DRC Congo, where they came from. And today, that bloodbath is still there going on between DRC Congo now and Rwanda. That bloodbath will be there forever. Only African can solve it. And guess what? Europe and America, who created the problem, they are sitting and laughing because it's in their interest. This is today's presentation. We stop here. Hopefully they reach to the Negro African. Hopefully they reach to the host Negro Africans, so that they can know what is going on. So that they can know that people on the other side of the world, their nation, their continent, they are uniting. So that they can know that there is no organization called UN. So that they can know that America is not in the interest of Africa. So that they can know that Europe, they are not in the interest of Africa. So that they can know that if they see any African leader standing against Europe and America, let them go and collaborate with that African leader. So that they can know that it's unity. They saw it when the issue happened in Ukraine. Do you see any Ukrainian refugees suffering? Have they shown any picture to see Ukrainian refugees suffering? Like the way this picture I just showed about the DRC Congo refugee. Did you see how Africans are suffering? Have you seen any picture of Ukrainian refugee suffering? Like the way African refugees suffer. African leaders, stop being part of the oppressor. Stop giving consent to these oppressors. Stop giving consent to the colonizer. Stop giving consent to Europe and America. That in itself, you are also part of the oppressor. You are not oppressed because you are in position of power to liberate your people and not to oppress your people, not to give consent to the oppressor. Nana Akufo-Addo, Tinubu, Macky Sall. You govern the continent. You unite. You stop giving consent to the Africans. I mean to Europe and America. Sorry, not African. But you start giving consent to Europe and America. You did it. You gave consent to Europe and America, and today the European brought their army in Africa. They brought their armies in Benin. They brought their warship in Nigeria. Because y'all gave them consent. When Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso said we don't want the French, y'all gave them consent to go fight another African nation, another African brother. You guys should stop it. Y'all look at what is going on in the world. Europe and America will never treat their citizens like that. And when I say their citizens, I know specifically who they are. I'm not talking about black people. Black people are not protected anywhere. Black people are not protected anywhere. So when we say the American citizen, we know who we are talking about. We're not talking about black people. We know black people are nothing in the world. They are not protected. So it is only the unification of Africa. It is only African leaders thinking rightfully will protect will protect black people anywhere in the world. Thank you for being on. I see you people next Saturday. Peace and Sunday. Share the life.